Hello, this is a short tutorial on downloading Virtualbox and Ubuntu onto a Mac or a Windows. So if you have ever wanted to try out Ubuntu or Linux, or if you've ever wanted to try out Virtualbox, or if you want to do a virtual machine and you've never done that, I'm going to show a little bit of all those things. So this is a tutorial that Ubuntu.com has that I followed that is really great. So I'm going to kind of walk through this in the video. So the first thing it wants you to do is download an Ubuntu image, and it has a download link. And that is ubuntu.com/download/desktop. I'm just going to download this latest version here. That's about 3 gigabytes, so that'll take a second to download. It'll start here in a minute. While that downloads, it also wants you to download and install VirtualBox. And it has another download link here. That is virtualbox.org/wiki/downloads. And then you'll just click on whichever of these links applies to your operating system. If you're on a Windows, click here. If you're on a Mac, click the OS X hosts. If you're on a Linux, click here. I'm on a Mac, so I'll click that guy. And this will install a virtualbox.dmg file. That's the installer. And I've already done this, so you can see I already have VirtualBox installed, but I'm going to basically go through the steps again so you can see them. There might be one step that it doesn't have me do because I've already done it, which is altering the security settings on your Mac to allow the VirtualBox to install. If you're on a Windows, you shouldn't have to worry about that, but Mac blocks downloads of anything that doesn't come from the App Store, basically. So once your .dmg finishes downloading, click it, and it'll open up your VirtualBox installer. It says double-click on this icon, which I will do. And this is saying I'm going to run some checks to see if your system will even allow VirtualBox to be installed. So click allow, and that'll run the checks. Oh, actually it opens up this installer. First you'll click continue, then you click install, then it'll run the checks. Once again, if you're on a Windows, you might not have to type in your password. You might not have to worry about this. This is the part where, if you haven't done this already, it's going to skip this part for me because I already changed this setting. But it'll probably pop up a little message at you that says, hey, you need to go change your system preferences. And it'll take you to your security and privacy settings on your system preferences. And just on this general tab, it'll pop up a little message that says, hey, we blocked VirtualBox. And there'll be an allow button. Click allow, and that will update your security settings such that it'll allow VirtualBox to download and work properly. Once you do that, it's going to pop up a message that says, hey, you need to restart your machine for that to take effect. And mine will pop up that message, but since I already changed the setting and restarted my machine, I won't need to restart my machine, but you will. Here's the message. Once again, if you're on a Windows, you probably won't need to do this step. But it's saying a reboot is required. Click OK, that's fine. Before you restart, though, let it finish installing. That's fine. Okay, installation is successful. Do you want to move the installer to the trash? Yes. And now restart your machine, and then once you've done that, go to your applications folder, and there will be your VirtualBox. On a Windows, you don't have an applications folder, but it'll be wherever you installed it. So let me open this installer one more time and maybe show you what I'm talking about. Oh, I moved it to the trash, so it's probably not even going to open. Yeah, okay, well, when you open that installer, it'll have an install location, and wherever it installs, that's where you'll find your program. Anyways, go ahead and open up the program. So I'm just going to double click the icon here. Give it a minute, and that'll open up the VirtualBox interface. Did I not double click it? There we go, okay. So it says, welcome to VirtualBox. And you're going to click on New. VirtualBox is a program that allows you to create virtual machines, which is just like a fake machine that lives within your machine. So click on New, and this is the way to create a virtual machine. You can create multiple. Give it whatever name you want. I'm just going to call mine Ubuntu since that's the kind of machine I'm making. You can pick your machine folder. I'm going to leave the default. You can pick your operating system. So you could create a Windows virtual machine, and you can pick what version of Windows, or you can do the Mac OS and pick which version of Mac you want. In my case, I'm going to do Linux, and the version I'm going to select is Ubuntu 64-bit. They also have, Red Hat, Oracle, Linux, like Debian. They have all these different kinds. I'm going to pick Ubuntu 64-bit. That's what this tutorial is walking us through. So I'm going to pick that one. It's going to ask how much RAM you want your fake machine to have, your virtual machine. You can change this later, so you're not stuck. So don't worry too much about this. But I'm going to do 6 gigs, I don't know, 5,900 megabytes, 6,000 megabytes, somewhere in that range. One thing I will say, I'm on a 16 gig machine, so I have plenty. If you're on an 8 gig machine, then you might want to do like 2 or 4 or something. Just make sure you're not up in this pink or red area. That's RAM that your actual machine needs to run. So if you do that and then spin up your virtual machine, your actual machine won't have what it needs to function properly. So keep it in the green and even give yourself a buffer. I'm going to pick somewhere in the 6 gigabyte range. It's asking if you want to create a virtual hard drive, and you do. So leave the default option, click create. It's going to ask what kind. Leave the default option, just VDI is fine, and click continue. And then it's going to ask if you want a fixed size or dynamically sized. To be completely honest, it doesn't matter right now. The tutorial says to do dynamically allocated, so that's what I'm going to do. The difference is a fixed size, it's going to allocate that much hard disk space right now for your virtual machine, whereas dynamically allocated means it'll just take what it needs right now, and as you use it, it'll grow to fit whatever you need, and then you'll set a maximum size on the dynamically allocated. So it'll just grow until it hits that maximum size, and then it'll stop. With fixed size, it just starts, and that's how much you have. So do whatever one you want. I'm going to do dynamically allocated, and then that'll have you pick a maximum hard drive space. It recommends at least 10 gigabytes. I have a 2 terabyte machine, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm just going to do like somewhere around 40 or 50 gigabytes as my maximum. Click create. And there is your virtual machine. Notice that this looks like a navigation menu, and it is, because I could create another one. And I'm just going to call this test because I'm going to get rid of it here in a minute. And sure, I'll do Windows. Same thing, you'd pick your RAM, you'd pick your hard drive. And you'll notice that now I have 2 virtual machines in the list here. And you can spin these up separately. If you click start, it'll start up whichever one you're trying to start up. In this case, the one that I just created, I'm going to delete because I don't really need it. And so if you right click on it, there's a remove option. And if this is a virtual machine that you've spun up and done stuff on in the past, you might have like files there that you want saved. So remove only will remove the virtual machine from this list, but it doesn't delete the storage. It doesn't delete like the hard drive. At least this is my understanding of what it's saying. Delete all files is saying we'll remove the virtual machine and the hard drive for that virtual machine, like it's gone. Any files you had in there or anything, they're gone. So in this case, I'm going to click delete all files because I don't really need this machine, so I'm just like completely getting rid of it. Okay, back on this, when you open up VirtualBox, this is the window that opens up. You can select which virtual machine you want to do, and you can click start, and that'll open up the virtual machine. Before we do that, I'm going to show you this settings. These are all the settings that it got created with. So you can change the name. It looks like you can even change like what kind of machine it is. Your system, this is how much RAM you chose. If you want to change the RAM in here, you can, and you click OK, and it'll change your RAM. A couple other tabs, your storage. This is your hard disk. It doesn't look like that one's editable, but there might be a way. I don't know enough about it. On your display, the default is probably going to be this VBox SVGA. Whichever one it is, make sure this is the one selected. VMSVGA. That's the one you want, at least according to, I think, this tutorial. Let's click next and see where we're at. Create a new virtual machine. We've done that. Install your image. Okay, it'll get to this in a minute, but basically do this VMSVGA one, click OK, it'll save your settings, and then we're going to click on Start. The reason I did that beforehand is once you start your image, you can't change the settings while it's running, so you have to shut it down, change the settings, and spin it back up. So change the settings beforehand, and basically the only one you need to do is go to that Display tab and select the VMSVGA. Okay, click on Start. So we have a virtual machine that knows it's going to be a Linux Ubuntu machine, but it doesn't have Ubuntu installed. So that's why we downloaded this Ubuntu .iso file from this Ubuntu site. So if you click here, it's empty. It's like, I need a boot disk or a download file, like a boot file. And this doesn't have it, so you're going to have to click on this folder icon and go find it. Once again, this is going to show as empty because you haven't found it yet. But if you click on this Add button, this will pull up your computer's folder navigator, go to your downloads, and you should be able to find that ubuntu.iso file. I've done this a few times, so I have a couple of them here. But find one of those, click open. Now it'll show up in this list, and you click on Choose, and now it should show up in this drop-down. Make sure it's selected. If you select empty and click, oh, it won't even let me click start. That's great. Make sure that your ubuntu.iso file is selected, and then click on start. And that's going to spin up your virtual machine. And you'll see this guy pop up a little bigger here. So this is spinning up the virtual machine using that ubuntu.iso file as the boot disk. So it's like using that to download and install Ubuntu onto this machine. I'm going to close those messages. Okay, in a minute here, it's going to start an install that actually takes a little bit of time. I'm going to pause the video while that runs, but this one's pretty quick, so I'm just going to let it run. Okay. I think it's going to ask me for some input here in a second. One thing I'm going to talk about while it spins there, once you have a virtual machine running, if you want to shut it down, let's see if there's a way here. Well, what I've always done, and this is, I think, the right way to do it, is you just kind of close this window, you click the X, and when you do that, it's going to ask you what you're trying to do. This top option, save the machine state, that's similar to if you've ever had a laptop and you close the lid, but then when you open the lid back up, you go right back to where you were. Like all of your documents are still open, all of your programs are still up and running. That's what save the machine state does. It's saying when I spin the machine back up, take me back to where I was. These other two actually turn the machine off. I'm going to click cancel because I don't want to turn it off right now. But they shut the machine down, and then when you log back in, it has to like start like boot back up, and none of your files are open and stuff. So that's how you shut the machine down, but I wouldn't do that right now because it's still installing stuff. But once it's up and running, you'll want to know how to shut it down. That's the way that I have done it. Okay, this probably is pause-worthy. I'm going to pause the video, the recording, and I will come back once this is ready for us. Oh, wait. I spoke too soon. Here we are. Maybe. We'll give it a second. Oh, it's like it's going. Okay, reading back through the tutorial here. Install your image. We've done that. Okay, so this is where it's getting to right now. Is it's going to... Yep. It's going to pull up this screen that asks if we want to try Ubuntu or install Ubuntu. I'm just going to click install Ubuntu. This is a virtual machine. The beauty of virtual machines is you can't really mess up your main machine while you're in your virtual machine. At least if there's a way, it's really difficult and I don't know how. So pick your language, click install Ubuntu. And then let's see what this next page, changing the window resolution. Okay, so you'll notice here it's going to ask you in the tutorial, it says power off the machine, go to your settings, go to the display, and select this. Oh, I told you the wrong one. Change the controller setting to VBox SVGA and click OK. I had it backwards. I'm a noob. All right, so the one that I told you to do is actually the default. And the one I said was the default is the one we want to do. So we'll go do that in a second. All right, click your keyboard layout, click continue. If this is your first time, I would just leave all these defaults and click through it. Obviously, pick the language you want and stuff, but like these defaults, I would just leave them. Click continue. The next one, I think, is going to ask if you want to erase the disk and install Ubuntu. Once again, this is a virtual machine, so like there's nothing on there, so there's nothing to erase. So I'm gonna do that. And that's the wonderful thing with a virtual machine is if you mess everything up on your virtual machine, you just delete it and create a new one, and you're not out anything, right? So virtual machines are awesome for this kind of stuff, for like playing around and trying out different things. And especially if you just wanted to try out Ubuntu Desktop, and there's like a ton of different, they call them flavors. It's like different, it's all Ubuntu Desktop, but it comes with like different preloaded programs and stuff. So you can try all those out on virtual machines, and it's great. Okay, yeah, leave the default, erase disk, and install Ubuntu. Click Install Now. And this is going to start an install process that takes a decent amount of time. Click Continue. So I'm going to pause the video and come back when it is done, once I make sure that I'm at the right place here. It actually might have me put in like my username and password first. So let me wait for a second and see where we're at. Okay, select your time zone. Yep, okay. Enter your name, pick a username and password. You have to put in a password because on Ubuntu you need your password for certain things, like super user commands and stuff. But then you can pick if you want, when you're opening up the virtual machine, do you want it to ask for your password or do you want it just to log you in automatically? Do whichever one you want. I'm going to say log me in automatically. Click Continue. And now I think it'll start the install. Yep. Okay, so this takes a minute, so I'm going to pause the recording and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. That was like 10 or 15 minutes, so I'm glad that I paused the recording. This is the screen I ended up on. It says installation is complete. Restart the computer in order to use the new installation. Keep in mind, this is a message inside your virtual machine. So you only need to restart your virtual machine. You don't need to restart your actual computer. So click Restart Now, and that is going to restart this. It'll restart Ubuntu inside of this virtual machine window. Okay, so now you get to see the Ubuntu spin up. You'll see a couple messages. Please remove the installation medium, then press enter. It thinks we use like a boot disk. That's fine. Just click enter. There's nothing to remove. That's fine. You'll see a couple of messages pop up on the screen as it boots up. And then it'll pull up the Ubuntu desktop, which is that like pinkish purple screen that we were just on, which if you're using a future version or a different version of Ubuntu, then maybe it's not pink or purple. I don't know. We'll give this a sec. If it doesn't go fast, I might pause the recording again. I don't want you to have to sit there and watch my screen. All right, I'm going to pause the recording. I'll be right back when it spins up. Okay, I'm back. This is the screen it ended up on. If you want to connect accounts, you can. I'm just going to push skip for now. Live patch, I'm just going to skip everything. I don't really care. Help improve Ubuntu, sure, doesn't matter. I'm just going to leave all these defaults and click next. I think I clicked next. Okay, there we go. Location services, if you want to turn it on, you can. Done. Okay, here is your Ubuntu desktop. Okay, we're going to do the resize thing. In order to do that, you need to shut down your virtual machine. Usually you can pick whichever of these you want. In this case, it's important that you pick this bottom one, I think, based on what this tutorial says. So click on Power Off the Machine, and that's because we're going to change some of these settings. And so I think the machine needs to be powered off in order for the settings to take effect. So we'll go to the settings, go to the display window, and we actually want to pick, change the graphics controller setting to VBox SVGA, and click OK, and there will be a little warning, invalid settings detected. it says ignore the warning. So I can follow directions with the best of them. So I'm going to ignore that warning and then restart the virtual machine. So I'm going to click start again. Once Ubuntu has started, you should now be able to select all of the available resolutions. So this is like the default size of the window that opens. But now that we've done that graphics controller setting, once Ubuntu Desktop pulls up, we can go change the display resolution and it'll actually resize the whole window for us, and that way we can see what we're doing. It'll be a little bigger and easier to look at. The last thing I'll say is I had it so that I don't have it doing my password, so when it starts up, it just logs me right into the desktop. If you did the password, you'll probably end up instead on the screen where you have to select your user and then type in your password. Then once you've done that, you should end up on the desktop as well. This guy's really blinking, flashing the screen at me. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know that I've ever seen him do that before. Guess we'll see what happens. And we'll pause the recording again because this takes a second. Okay, we're back and we got this desktop pulled up. You'll notice it's very similar to a normal desktop. The Ubuntu desktop navigation is on the side instead of on the bottom. That's fine. If you click these 9 dots, this is like your start menu. I don't know. It'll pull up this little thing, and you can scroll through all of your apps if you want, or you can just type in here. I'm going to type to search, type display. Normally it doesn't blink. The screen doesn't blink like this. I don't know if that's because of that VBox SVGA setting or what. I haven't seen it do that before. It might just be like I need to shut it down and pull it back up. I don't know. But click on displays. Excuse me, sorry. And that'll pull up your display settings. Wow, that's rough. Once we change the resolution, I'll show you how to change the resolution. And well, that's probably the end of the tutorial. So I'm gonna restart it and see if it fixes the blinking, but that's kind of weird. So you'll notice this resolution is 800 by 600. That's the size of this window. I'm just gonna change that to something bigger. I'm gonna go like 1920 by 1200. Click apply, and you'll see that it snaps it to a bigger size. And then click on keep changes. And then you can click the X to close out of the settings. And now it's, you can pick whatever size you want, but now it's a reasonable size. You can see what's going on. So that's it for the tutorial. I am going to do this just to see if it fixes the flashing, just because I'm curious. And I'll leave the video running in case anybody else is curious. But, well, I'm going to pause the video because it takes a second to spin up. But when it comes back, we'll see if the flashing is fixed. I will be right back. Okay, we're back, and the flashing is not any better. So I'm actually going to try one other thing because I'm curious. Power off the machine, that's fine. I wonder if it is that display setting that I changed, so I'm going to go change it back and see if it does anything different for me. So the default is the VM SVGA. That warning goes away. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click Start and see what happens. And then while that starts up, I'm just going to see, oh, this is the end of the primary tutorial. Okay, so if you keep going through this tutorial, it'll show you about some other things, installing guest editions. It's going to have a page, I think, that talks about the flavors. Here we go. So you can try out different flavors. This is basically just the defaults that your Ubuntu desktop comes installed with. I have a coworker who does the Ubuntu. I've never tried anything other than this like default one, so I can't speak to any of them. And then if you keep clicking through it, it'll ask if you want to take a survey. Anyways, that's it for this guy. So where's my Virtualbox? There it is. Okay, this guy's still spinning up. I'm just curious if that fixes the flashing, and I'm also curious if it'll let me resize the screen with this setting. I'm just kind of playing around at this point, but that flashing was rough. I don't know that I could work really well on that. So I'm gonna play around with some of these settings real quick and see what they do. Splash myself. Okay, with the other setting, it resized automatically. This one didn't, which is interesting. But the flashing is gone. So I guess you pick your battles. I'm gonna see if I can just change the resolution on this guy. It's also weird because I spun one of these up last night and I didn't have the flashing, and I don't think maybe I just didn't notice it, but that doesn't seem likely to me. It was pretty apparent. It also seemed faster yesterday, so I don't know if my computer's just slow today or what. Okay, here's the issue. It still thinks that my screen is this huge size and it's not, so this doesn't like fit on the screen. But then it also has this resolution back down to 800 by 600. Weird. Let's just pick one of these again. Click apply. That still worked. Keep changes. Okay, interesting. So that worked. It just seems like every time you start it up, you may have to go change the resolution again. Whereas if you do that other setting, then it'll resize it for you automatically. But then it was flashing at me, which I didn't like. So I personally, I'm not going to use this day to day, so I don't really care if I have to resize it every time I open it up. So I'm probably going to keep it on this VMS VGA. But I thought there was maybe one other thought, but that might be it. I'm going to call it. Thanks for watching. Hope it helped somebody, and see you guys.